Wife cheated with my rich boss and called me a broke loser when I confronted her, and said that I can never treat her as well as my boss does, and that she wants a divorce. So this is what I did. I, 26M, have been married to my wife, Zoe, 23F, for 1 year. We had been together for the last 4 years, and in spite of our differences, we had been able to make it so far. Zoe and I come from very different kinds of families, and she has had a very different life from mine. We met each other when we were in college, at a mutual friend's birthday party. It was pretty much love at first sight for me because she was the most beautiful person I had ever seen, and when I started talking to her, I realized that she was just as charming as she was beautiful. Over the course of the next couple of months, we got to know each other better through text, and we went out on a lot of dates before getting into a relationship. But it was not until we had started living together that she told me about her family. That had always been a huge question mark for me, since she had told me that she did not want me to meet her family, as she did not get along well with them and had been in no contact with them for a couple of years. After being together for almost a year, I finally told her that I wanted her to tell me more about her family because it felt like she was hiding something from me on purpose, and I was not comfortable with that idea since she knew everything about me. So then, she finally told me that she and her parents were no longer in touch because they had kicked her out of the house when she started college. They had wanted her to drop out and start working so she could contribute to the family, but she wanted to get a degree and they were not happy about it. So they got into a big fight and she left home after they told her that she could get out of their house. She chose to leave, and then, with a lot of help from a couple of relatives and a few friends, she was able to gather enough money to pay her tuition, and then that's how she put herself through college. Apparently, her parents had always been like that. They were really stingy, and not even willing to work hard enough to earn their own money, so they were constantly relying on help from relatives to bail them out. That's why most of their family members did not even like their family, and they had been ostracized for how her parents always tried to manipulate people into giving them money and promise that they would return it, but they never would. They ran a flop makeup and beauty business together, and they had wanted her to join them eventually, but she cut them off instead. She told me that it had been a task for her to even get her relatives to agree because of the kind of reputation that her parents had, but thankfully, they pet her because of how desperate she was and agreed to help her without expecting anything in return. She told me that she owed a lot of money to a lot of people, and that was why she was working so hard so early in life, getting a degree, and also making sure that she earned money from a part-time job as well. I thought that it was pretty inspiring, and I wanted to help her out, so I told her that I would also start contributing and would help her pay off her debts. As I mentioned above, I come from a very different family compared to hers. My dad is an ophthalmologist and my mom is an entrepreneur. She deals in handmade jewelry online and it's pretty successful. So I grew up pretty comfortable and money has never been an issue for me. That's not to say that I don't care about money and I just throw it around. I'm not that kind of a person, but I've just never had to struggle with it. That's what I'm trying to say. So when I learned about Zoe's story, I was touched because she had kept it a secret from me for so long because she was afraid that I would think of her as a gold digger, like a couple of other people had said when they first found out that she was dating me. After talking to her about it, we decided that I was going to help her out as well so she could pay off her debts faster. I would send her a specific amount of money every month and then, she would come to me and tell me that it was really helpful. I never bothered to ask her the details of the transactions because I trusted her and she had never given me any reason not to. I don't think she knew that the money that I was giving her came from my own salary and I was not borrowing anything from my parents. But she did not need to know that, so it was fine. At the time, the two of us were living together. She had moved into my apartment and I handled all the bills. I was earning by then, so it was not a problem for me. She had just graduated, so she was still looking for a full-time job, and I did not want her to waste her salary whenever I was perfectly capable of doing it on my own. We were happy together for the 4 years that we had been living together, including the past year after we got married. Her behavior started changing slightly after we got engaged, but it was not obvious for me to actually notice. And once we got engaged, I got very busy at work as well, since I had to finish everything up before I left for my honeymoon. I did not have enough time to notice small and insignificant things like Zoe spending a lot of time on her phone, often coming home really late from her job, and how she had almost stopped looking for a full-time job. I wasn't worried about any of those things since she had just graduated. I knew that she would find something to do. And then we got married, almost a year ago, which was funded entirely by my parents and me. Did not have much family to speak of, so we could not expect her parents to chip in and very few guests as well, so we believed that it would be best for us to fund the entire thing. She hadn't even offered to contribute, but I was fine with it. I did not think that was strange because she had already explained her situation to me. So I was fine with it, and even after the wedding, I decided to continue paying all the major bills and stuff, not expecting her to split anything with me at any point. She continued to tell me that she was still looking for something, but none of the jobs that were being offered were suited to her taste, and she wanted something a little more challenging. I believed her, and I also knew that she had been working for a really long time, so she deserved some rest. And I did not say anything to her about it. We also stopped at the arrangement where I would send her a certain amount of money every month and she would be offered debts with it. Or at least I believed that that's what she was doing with it. Unfortunately, a couple of days ago, I found out that she had been cheating on me with my boss. I wasn't snooping or anything, it had been completely coincidental. She was in the shower and I was sitting in the living room, where her laptop was charging. I think she was watching something, I don't remember, but then all of a sudden, I saw that she was receiving a voice call on Instagram, from an account named Unknown Lover. So my first instinct was obviously to answer the call, and I immediately heard my boss's voice asking her why she had taken so long to answer the call. I hung up immediately and tried to make sense of this. I tried to convince myself that there might be some innocent explanation for this, but then, when I opened Instagram on her laptop, and then I opened the chats with this account, I realized that they had been having an affair for quite a while, from before we got married. I scrolled back as far as I could, and I'm really lucky that Zoe takes such long showers because it gave me enough time to scroll back and realize that they had actually started flirting around the time that we got engaged. From what I gathered after reading the chats, my boss, 32M, had tried to hit on her at my engagement party and she had responded well to it. So after that, he created a burner account to flirt with her, and that's how their affair started. I realized that they had been sleeping together for a really long time, and she had been more verbally affectionate than she had ever been with me, because in those messages, she constantly kept telling him that she loved him, and she was ready to leave everything for him, including me. It was my boss who was holding out on the relationship because he was also married and even had a child aged around 5 or 6 as well. He had told her to wait and they would get together soon, that's why she was waiting with me. To say that I was devastated would be an understatement, and I started crying as soon as I read those messages. In the meantime, Zoe had come out of the shower, and when she heard me crying, she came to my side to comfort me, but then she saw what I was reading on screen and took a couple of steps back. Instead of trying to deny it or apologizing to me, she just stood there silently while I cried. After a while, I got really frustrated and I asked her what the heck was that, and she told me point blank that she had been waiting for me to find out and had actually been thinking about telling me herself because she didn't want to be with me anymore. She told me that she was exhausted from pretending to love me and confessed that she had actually fallen out of love with me a couple of weeks after we got married. She had realized that my boss was the right man for her. I asked her why she believed that. She told me that it was quite simple for her because she knew that a broke loser like me would never be able to treat her the way that my boss did. She even bragged about how a couple of months ago, she had told me that she was going out for the weekend with her friends and taking a girls' trip, but actually, she had been out with my boss, and her friends had been covering for her. So that explained all the fancy new gifts that her so-called friends were getting her and all the expensive clothes, bags, makeup, and jewelry that she was sporting all of a sudden. She had been telling me that a friend of hers had come into a lot of money and was treating all of them with these things, but now I know the truth, it was my boss. She said that she was lucky that I had found out on my own, and now, she wanted a divorce because she was sick of pretending that she was interested in me. She even said that she would rather be single or be my boss's mistress than be my wife anymore, and this marriage was over. Before I could even process what was going on, she started packing her things. I did not beg her to stay, I had more pride than that, and I was hurting, my heart was broken, and I knew that I had to let her go. She hadn't even tried to deny anything or even apologize to me for what she had done. In fact, she seemed pretty happy to be going. She was about to grab her laptop and leave, but I told her that anything that I had bought for her was nothing. It was my money and not her. She made a face when I told her that, but didn't try to argue and left the laptop at my house. Everything else that I had bought her remained with me. But honestly, the laptop was more important for me, and I actually had a plan in my mind. I needed that as proof of the divorce because I was not going to let her off easily. And I was also not going to forgive my boss for this because even though we had a good working relationship, he had no right to hit on my wife and then do such nasty